Welcome to Roll Credits, where movie lovers get the trivia they didn't know they needed. This podcast was created with a little help from AI tools. We do our best to keep things accurate and fun, but some details might slip through, so double check if you're quoting this at your next movie night. Today, we're returning to the Colosseum with Gladiator II, Ridley Scott's long-awaited sequel that pits new gladiators against the ghosts of Rome's past. I mean, after decades, the anticipation for this, it feels immense. What is it about Gladiator II? Why is this return such a big deal, especially after all this time?
Yeah, it's a really good question because the original Gladiator, it was just this cinematic titan, wasn't it? 5 Oscars, Best Picture included. And it told such a, it's a complete story, felt very final. So our mission for this deep dive really is to dig into the fascinating facts, the behind-the-scenes stuff, go beyond just the plot. We want to understand the huge effort, the creative choices. I mean, how do you follow that? The bar is set incredibly high.
That's such a great point. Definitive is the word. So, okay, let's unpack this. What's the actual story bringing us back to the arena? How does it connect without spoiling everything?
Right. Okay, spoiler alert. Gladiator II picks up 16 years after the original. It focuses on Lucius Verus Aurelius, now an adult, played by Paul Mescal.
Yeah.
He's Marcus Aurelius' grandson, obviously. But here's the big thing revealed in that second trailer.
Yeah.
He's also Maximus's son.
Wow, okay. That's a powerful connection right there.
It is. So Lucius gets taken prisoner when the Romans invade his home in Numidia. And just like his father, he's forced into gladiatorial combat back in the Colosseum. He's seeking revenge. So the film digs into those big themes again. Survival, power struggles in Rome, that search for humanity, for honor, amidst all the greed and brutality.
So it sounds like it's definitely got that same gritty, brutal feel as the first one, but maybe looking at those timeless struggles through a new character's eyes.
Exactly.
And Ridley Scott returning to direct, 2 decades later. That's remarkable. How much of his original vision do you think carries over? Is he bringing something new to it?
Well, Scott's talked about how it still explores those constants, human cruelty, violence, but also that fight for love, for family ties. Having him back definitely signals a consistent vision. And you can see the scale of that vision in the budget. It's colossal. Gross budget, $310 million. Net around $210 million after tax credits and things.
Wow. That's not just a number, is it? That screams ambition. Recreating Rome again.
Absolutely. It shows the massive investment, the sheer scale Scott and the studio wanted. And release dates.
Yeah.
UK gets it November 15th, 2024, then the US on November 22nd.
Okay, so speaking of bringing this world to life, the cast, this is always huge for a sequel like this, these new faces and some familiar ones. How do they fit in? How do they connect to the original without just, repeating it?
It's a really fantastic lineup, and you can see they thought carefully about carrying that legacy. Paul Mescal as Lucius, he's central. And how he was cast tells you a lot about Scott's approach. Ridley Scott apparently saw him in Normal People, that BBC series. He wanted a fresh face, someone with that raw talent, not necessarily a typical action hero.
Right, not just muscles.
Exactly. And Mescal's physicality from playing Gaelic football helped, but Scott also saw a resemblance to Richard Harris, Marcus Aurelius, that seemed to influence things. And the preparation, intense. Physical training, diet, apparently lots of sweet potato and ground beef to gain like 18 pounds of muscle.
Wow.
Plus Roman history study, sword fighting practice, horse training, the works. But what's really interesting, he deliberately avoided contact with Russell Crowe.
Oh, really? Why?
He wanted to define his own Lucius, create his own performance, separate from Maximus's shadow, find his own way into that legacy.
That makes sense, carving out his own space. Did avoiding Crowe give him more freedom, do you think? Or just add a different kind of pressure?
I suspect it gave him freedom to really focus on Lucius's own internal journey, which is crucial given his complex parentage and situation. And we do have those bridges to the past. Connie Nielsen is back as Lucilla.
Lucius's mother, Maximus's former lover.
Exactly. That direct emotional link. And Derek Jacobi reprises his role as Senator Gracchus, still navigating the corrupt imperial court.
Okay, so the family connection, the political intrigue, that's there. But what about the new power players? Who are the key figures shaking things up for Lucius?
Right. Pedro Pascal joins as General Acacius. Now, he's a Roman general who actually trained under Maximus.
Oh, interesting dynamic.
Yeah. And he's now Lucilla's husband. He leads the army that invades Lucius's home. Pascal described him as a very good general, which can mean a very good killer. Sort of embodies what Lucius hates initially. Sets up real conflict.
Definitely. And then there's Denzel Washington.
Yes. Denzel Washington as Macrinus. A former Ethiop slave, now a powerful figure who plans to control Rome from behind the scenes. He's a stable master for gladiators, an arms dealer, and becomes a kind of mentor to Lucius. Ridley Scott apparently described him as pretty fucking cruel to the fighters.
That's blunt.
Tells you something, right? And Washington himself said Macrinus wants to be emperor, and he's willing to do anything to get there. So pure, ruthless ambition.
Wow, what a character. Embodies that Roman ambition and maybe the moral murkiness.
Yeah.
And then the twin emperor. I heard the inspiration for them was a bit odd.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Joseph Quinn as Emperor Geta, Fred Hetchinger as Emperor Caracalla, co-emperors, and Ridley Scott's inspiration, Beavis and Butthead.
Seriously, Beavis and Butthead.
Seriously, he called them damaged goods brothers. It's unexpected, isn't it? Quinn apparently looked to actors like Philip Seymour Hoffman, Gary Oldman. His look was inspired by John Lydon, Johnny Rotten, and Hetchinger's Caracalla, who has this pet monkey named Ondus. He was inspired by Sid Vicious. His crazed behavior was linked to the monkey. Adds this volatile, unhinged element.
Using Beavis and Butthead for Roman emperors, that is certainly a choice. How does that kind of, weird influence fit with the brutal historical setting?
I think it suggests they wanted to inject this chaotic, maybe darkly funny energy into the imperial court, make them feel less like stiff historical figures, more like psychologically messed up individuals.
Yeah.
Adds another layer to the brutality, perhaps.
Interesting. Any other key supporting players we should mention?
Yeah, quickly. Leor Raz plays Vigo, Macrinus' tough gladiator trainer. Peter Mensa is Jugurtha, a Numidian chieftain, mentor to Lucius before things go wrong. Matt Lucas is the master of ceremonies in the Colosseum. Expect some theatrical flair there. Alexander Karim plays Ravi, a gladiator physician. And Tim McGinnerney is Senator Thraix, a corrupt senator tangled up with Macrinus.
Quite the ensemble cast. So, with all these pieces, let's talk about putting it on screen. The look, the sound, the grandeur.
Yeah.
What went into the production? What were the big creative and technical calls?
It was a massive production, really aiming for that authentic, huge feel. The crew was incredibly international, like a United Nations on the set, Scott said. People from England, Malta, Italy, Croatia, Australia, Germany, Spain, all working together. Filming mainly happened in Malta at Fort Ricasoli. That's a 17th century fort they completely transformed to look like ancient Rome.
Wow.
And also in Morocco. Ouarzazate. They actually built a giant arena there. It shows that blend of practical sets and modern tech. A big chunk of the Colosseum was physically built at Fort Ricasoli. The rest was filled in seamlessly with CGI.
That mix sounds key, grounding it in reality before the digital magic. And I heard Ridley Scott had a specific battle he'd wanted to do for ages.
He did. This is a great bit of trivia. For 25 years, apparently, Ridley Scott had wanted to stage a rhino battle in one of his Roman films.
A rhino battle.
Yep. And he finally got his wish in Gladiator II. It's one of those wild, ambitious Scott touches that adds to the sheer spectacle.
Okay, the soundtrack, the original Gladiator score is just iconic, absolutely huge. How did they tackle the music for the sequel, especially without Hans Zimmer composing?
That was a major challenge, for sure. Harry Gregson Williams took over composing duties, and he went big. A 90-piece orchestra, a 100-voice choir, recorded at Abbey Road Studios earlier this year.
Wow, Abbey Road.
Yeah. And while Hans Zimmer wasn't composing, he apparently praised Gregson Williams' work, gave his approval, which is, pretty significant nod, like passing the torch with a blessing.
That's good to hear. What about other sounds? I heard the first trailer used something unexpected.
It did. It used Jay-Z and Kanye West's No Church in the Wild. Caused a bit of a stir online, modern music for ancient Rome. But there's precedent.
Oh.
The original Gladiator trailer used Kid Rock's Bawitdaba. So it's actually a returning marketing tactic, using contemporary music to grab attention.
Huh. That's fascinating. I'd forgotten about the Kid Rock thing. Okay, the big question. The elephant in the Colosseum, Maximus, Russell Crowe. Was there ever any version where he came back?
Oh, there were ideas thrown around early on. Lots of them, apparently. There was one truly wild script by Nick Cave, the musician, titled Christ Killer.
Wait, what? Christ Killer?
Yeah. Maximus gets resurrected by the Roman gods as an immortal warrior, tasked with killing Christ and stopping Christianity. He accidentally kills his own son in the process, then gets cursed to live forever, fighting through history, crusades, World War II, Vietnam, ending up working at the Pentagon today.
Good grief. That sounds like a completely different movie. Maybe several different movies.
Right. Definitely fantastical. Thankfully, maybe rejected. There was a simpler idea, too, just a brief flashback. Lucius finding Maximus's grave in some catacombs. That was dropped as well. So, bottom line. Russell Crowe is not involved in the final film at all. This is Lucius's story.
Probably for the best, sticking to a new path. Beyond creative ideas, any major hurdles or incidents during the actual filming? It sounds like a complex shoot.
It definitely was. Unfortunately, there was a stunt accident where 6 crew members were injured. Just highlights the risks involved in these big action sequences.
Yeah, that's tough. Safety is always a concern.
On a much lighter note, Gladiator II shares its U.S. release date with Wicked Part 1, which led to all the Barbenheimer-style speculation. Paul Mescal himself jumped on it, playfully calling it glicked.
Glicked. I love it.
Yeah, he even encouraged people to do a double feature, embracing the whole thing.
That's fun. Okay, with all these creative choices, historical accuracy often gets debated. How close does Gladiator II stick to actual history? Where does it fudge things for drama?
The classic history versus Hollywood question. Always tricky with epics. Scholars seem to generally praise the portrayal of the gladiators themselves, their training, their doctors. That seems pretty well researched. But there are some definite inaccuracies. Things change for the story, like those naval battles, the Naumachia.
They couldn't actually flood the Colosseum then.
Not in Caracalla's time, no. By then, the hypogeum, the underground area, was fully developed, with lifts and machinery for animals and fighters. Flooding it wasn't really feasible anymore. Earlier emperors might have, but not then.
Okay, so no water battles. What about the characters based on real people?
Right. Denzel Washington's Macrinus. Historically, Macrinus was a Berber, not black. And he was the Praetorian prefect head of the emperor's bodyguard. A super powerful political and military job. Nothing to do with gladiators.
So a completely different role in history.
Completely. There was some discussion about the casting, though Washington rightly pointed out there were black people in Rome at the time. It's more about the character's job being fictionalized.
Yeah.
Also, Gaeta and Caracalla, they weren't twins. Caracalla's about a year older. And Lucilla, historically, she died years before Caracalla became emperor. And her son, the real Lucius, also died young in childhood. So their survival and roles in this film are purely for the narrative. Big departures from history.
Right, serving the story. Anything else? That monkey.
Yes. Dondus the monkey consul. Zero historical basis for Caracalla having a monkey consul. That's almost certainly inspired by the earlier Emperor Caligula, who supposedly talked about making his horse Incitatus a consul, so borrowing a bit of imperial madness from a different era.
Okay, so quite a few historical liberties taken. Which isn't uncommon, I guess.
Not at all, especially in epics like this.
Well, this has been fascinating. This deep dive really shows the incredible scale, the intricate decisions, the blend of history and fiction behind Gladiator II. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And maybe that's the thought to leave people with. Given these creative choices in Gladiator II, what parts of history do you, listening now, feel are most important for movies to try and get right? And where is it okay or even necessary for filmmakers to diverge to tell a really powerful, compelling story? What stands out to you about striking that balance between historical accuracy and pure cinematic spectacle?
And that wraps our return to the arena with Gladiator II. If you enjoyed this epic ride back into ancient Rome, follow Roll Credits and share it with your fellow history buffs and film fans. We'll be back soon with more trivia, more movie magic, and maybe a few sword clinks. Stay curious.